Okay, yesterday we were learning about mezuzahs. The last thing we were learning is that in order for a room to be chayv in a mezuzah, according to all opinions, it has to be at least 6 feet by 6 feet. What happens if it's 9 by 4, 18 by 2, or also the same square footage, but nevertheless, then it's a machlekes if it really needs a mezuzah, it doesn't need a mezuzah, and so on. Okay, next thing is like this. The only time a room needs a mezuzah is if you have 2 doorposts and a lintel on top. A lot of times you have driveways, or even in the archways, whatever. You can have 2 poles on the side, but there's no, or gate, for instance, a gate that doesn't have a top. So you have 2 side posts, 2 mezuzahs, but you don't have a mashkef. A mashkef is the board on top, or the... Yeah, mashkef. Okay, so the only time a room needs a mezuzah, even without a bracha, because we learned yesterday, remember, if there's no door, you put up without a bracha. But if there's no 2 doorposts, or there's no mashkef, then you don't need to have a mezuzah there. So a gate that has, let's say, no top lintel to it, so then the fact that it has 2 doorposts doesn't need a mezuzah. But a lot of times in driveways, you have, the driveway goes into the backyard. So there's archways, one, then another one. Sometimes you have that. Both of those need a mezuzah without a bracha, because it's an archway.
But it's not a room.
Huh?
It's not a room, it's still outside.
It's still like, but visharecha. Beisecha visharecha. It doesn't have to be only inside. It says clearly in your gates. The gates are outside the house. It's not in part of the house. So therefore, then it would need a mezuzah. Sometimes you have in your backyard, this is a very not a tricky thing, but a lot of times people have Spanish design houses, and in the backyard, they have a bunch of archways. One after another, you can have 5 or 6 of them even. Each one needs a mezuzah. If they're made to walk through back and forth, then it needs a mezuzah. It's a regular gateway. It's a gate. No bracha because it doesn't have a door. But it still needs to have a mezuzah because the archways are still there. You can have even sometimes in the front porch of a house. You can have a front porch of the house, and then on the side there's another entrance, from the driveway, whatever it is. Anytime you have an archway or things like that, you would need a mezuzah. If there's a top and the 2 sides. Now, what happens, one second. If there's a room, this you have very often. There's a doorpost on one side, but the other side is a plain wall. This side is a plain wall, and this side has, one of the 2 sides has a doorpost. So the din is like this. If the doorpost is on the right side, then you have to put a mezuzah. If the doorpost is on the left side, that means the right side is not a doorpost. The right side where you're supposed to put the mezuzah is only a wall, so then you don't need a mezuzah. What? What?
Why is it that only a doorway with a door you make a bracha?
Because there's a machlekes and halachos. Some poskim, even Kitzur brings down, Yashem afilu ein dolosis lepesach chay b'mezuzah. V'yashemrim the be'inyan daf gedalis. So in fact, the Kitzur is saying this about a different din. The din is, remember we learned by sukkah and by tzitzis, and also by mezuzah, by the way, you have to make it, it cannot be made. In other words, what happens if you have a door, one side a doorpost, nothing else is done yet, and you put up a mezuzah, then you build the rest of the doorway. Then it's no good, because the mezuzah is not put there, it happened to be there. So he's saying, what happens if you have a door frame, and you're planning to put a door? So you put up a mezuzah, because you didn't put up the door yet. The din is when you put up the door, because there are opinions that hold you don't need a mezuzah if there's no door. So what you need to do is take off the mezuzah and then put it again. Then you put it with a bracha, because now it has a door. If there are 2 doorposts and a door and the lintel on top, you need. Now,
When you have the electric gate to the driveway, for
yeah,
example, and many times it opens up, so they have on top like mashkov.
it would need.
So then you need it even with the bracha.
Why is it different than a garage door?
Yeah.
Okay, the old-fashioned garage doors didn't go up, right? It went out.
Yeah.
So a garage door, it's a door frame. It even has a door. It needs a mezuzah going into the garage.
But even if the door go up like this.
Yeah, because it's a front door. It's. Then you have a side door of the garage. Sometimes you have another door, so that also needs a mezuzah. Now a hospital, believe it or not, a hospital doesn't need a mezuzah. Normally, a few reasons. Number one, mezuzah is an obligation of the one that lives there. Now, number one, a hospital is one of the reasons why you're allowed to carry in a hospital on Shabbos also. Normally, if you have an apartment building, you have to make an Erev Chatzeres. You have to make a courtyard Erev to be able to carry. Because in a hospital, you're not renting the room. They can move you whenever they want from room to room. So it's not like a rental. I rent an apartment. They can't just, okay, tomorrow we want you to move here. It doesn't work like that. Or hotel room also. Now, hotel rooms, you're usually not there for 30 days. What happens if somebody lives in a hotel? You know, they have rentals for months, years, whatever. Then you have to put up a mezuzah. They question, let's say, an RV.
Will they let you in a hotel?
Huh?
Somebody rents a room for 31 days in a hotel.
You would have to put a mezuzah. Why not?
It's not, I mean,
You're renting it, it's yours. They can't tell you middle change rooms.
are we going to make holes in the thing now? You know, you can just stick it.
You still have to put a mezuzah. You'll deal with it later. But the fact is, it needs a mezuzah. If somebody has a boat that they live in, then they're more than 30 days, you need a mezuzah. If somebody has an RV, more than 30 days, right, it needs a mezuzah.
Discussing the 30 days, that when somebody moves into a new place, rental, right? The rental, is it you have up to 30 days to put it, or you have to wait 30 days to put it?
Okay, our custom is that when you're rental, in Shulchan Aruch it says you don't have to put up a mezuzah until 30 days. Therefore, you don't make a bracha on a mezuzah because you're not obligated in a rental outside of Israel. You rent in Eretz Yisrael, you're obligated right away. In Shulchan Aruch it says you buy a house in Israel, out of Israel, you have to put up mezuzahs right away. That, I'm just saying what it says in Shulchan Aruch. There's a letter from the Rebbe a little bit different, but in Shulchan Aruch it says that you buy a house, you have to put up mezuzahs right away with the bracha. You rent a house, you don't have to put up mezuzah for 30 days. On the 30th day, you make a bracha.
You don't have to.
1 minute. So our custom, the Rabbi writes, our custom is that we put up mezuzahs right away without a bracha. On the 30th day, we change a mezuzah for a better mezuzah. And because you're putting up a better mezuzah, then you can make a new bracha. And that's our custom. Whether that applies to houses, it's questionable, even though the Rebbe did tell people that bought houses, it's known, our minig, that for the first 30 days you put up without a bracha. So I don't know exactly, because the Shulchan Aruch says that you buy a house, you have to put up a mezuzah right away.
Better mezuzah, or if like you check it, it's not considered as if it's a better mezuzah?
No, that's another issue for tomorrow night. Come tomorrow night, we'll discuss what happens when you check a mezuzah.